Elena thought she was saving a drowning man. She was wrong. She was waking someone who would change everything. When she dragged the massive, scarred body from the churning surf during a storm on the Oregon coast, her only thought was survival. Airway, breathing, circulation. She tilted his head back and pressed her lips to his to breathe life into cold lungs. She didn't expect the jolt that seemed to connect them. She didn't expect the stranger to snap his eyes open, dark and intense, and pin her to the sand with terrifying speed. And she certainly didn't expect his first words to be a command that felt like it reached into her very soul. "You're mine now." The ocean screamed, hurling 30-foot waves against the rocky coastline like it had a personal grudge. Elena Russo squinted through the salt spray whipping against the windows of the old lighthouse station. At 48, she'd seen enough storms to know when to worry. "Idiots with cameras," she muttered, reaching for her rescue equipment. It was past midnight, her shift technically over, but Elena hadn't survived 20 years of coastal rescue by being careless. Then she saw it, a dark shape bobbing in the violent surf. Most people would mistake it for driftwood. Elena's trained eyes saw the truth. It was a massive man being pulverized by the Pacific. She grabbed her rescue float and hit the beach running. The water was freezing, cold enough to kill within minutes. She dove under the first wave, fighting the current with powerful strokes. When she reached him, she realized her mistake. He wasn't just big, he was enormous. She hooked her arm around his chest to flip him over and nearly sank under his weight. "Don't be dead," she grunted, fighting the ocean for every inch. "I don't want to do the paperwork." By the time her knees hit sand, her lungs were burning. She dragged him up the beach, collapsing beside him. Lightning illuminated him. He was covered in wounds, angry slashes that looked like burns. Deep, deliberate burns. He wasn't breathing. Elena positioned herself over him, starting compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nothing. She tilted his head back and lowered her mouth to his. The moment their lips touched, the world exploded. It wasn't a spark. It was lightning. A shockwave of heat blasted from his mouth into hers, slamming into her chest. It wasn't just air she pushed into him. It felt like something deeper, more fundamental. Beneath her, the man inhaled. A jagged, wet sound. Then his eyes opened. They were dark, almost black, and filled with an intensity that froze her in place. Before Elena could move, a hand shot up and wrapped around her wrist. He flipped their positions with impossible speed. Elena's back hit the sand hard. He loomed over her, dripping wet, his face carved from stone and determination. He lowered his head, burying his nose against her neck, inhaling deeply. He pulled back, those dark eyes locking onto hers. "Mine." The word wasn't spoken. It was declared. Elena didn't freeze. She got angry. "Get off me!" She drove her knee into his ribs. The giant blinked, confusion flickering across his face. His grip loosened. "You hit me." His voice sounded like gravel in a cement mixer. "I just saved your life, you ungrateful." Elena shoved at his chest. He didn't budge. "Personal space. Learn it." "You smell like salt and fury," he murmured, studying her as if she were a puzzle. "You are—" "I am a rescue worker who is 5 seconds away from leaving you for the seagulls." Suddenly, the man's head whipped toward the cliffs above. His nostrils flared. Elena heard it then, the crunch of tires on gravel, heavy doors slamming, the distinct sound of weapons being loaded. "Target is down on the beach." A voice drifted down, cold and mechanical. "Confirm the kill." The stranger looked down at her. "Leave. Now." "They have guns," Elena whispered. "I know," he growled, trying to push himself up. His arms trembled and he collapsed back onto her. "Damn it." "Great," Elena muttered, looking at approaching flashlight beams. "I saved the guy and now I have to carry him. This is the worst night of my life." "Can you stand?" Elena hissed, shoving his shoulder. "I am Dominic Kane," he slurred, his weight crushing her. I don't crawl. Well, Dominic, unless you want to be a corpse, you need to move. She grabbed his arm and hauled. He stumbled upright, swaying. 3 figures appeared at the cliff edge above them. Thwip! 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 Sand exploded inches from Elena's feet. Move! She grabbed his waist and dragged him toward the shadow of the lighthouse. He was heavy and bleeding, but he tried to shield her with his body. Stop! He commanded weakly. Let me save the heroics. Elena shoved him behind a concrete pillar. She needed a weapon. She had a rescue float and a whistle. Wait, the emergency kit in the station. Stay here, she ordered. Don't die. Don't yell. Just exist quietly. She scrambled up, the metal ladder as bullets chipped the concrete around her. She dove into the station, ripping the emergency box off the wall. Flare gun. Old, clunky, one shot. It would have to do. The first shooter landed 10 feet away, raising his rifle. Elena aimed for the sand in front of his feet. Boom! The magnesium flare ignited with blinding brightness. The man screamed, clutching his face. Elena grabbed Dominic and they stumbled to her ancient Bronco. She shoved him into the passenger seat and gunned the engine. You blinded him, Dominic mumbled, touching the dashboard like it was alien technology. Vicious. I like it. Hold on. Elena didn't take the road. She spun the wheel hard, driving through a chain-link fence and into a drainage ditch. The Bronco bucked and slammed. Dominic groaned. Sorry, Elena yelled. Suspension's shot. Who are you? Dominic demanded, staring at her profile. I'm the woman saving your life, she said through gritted teeth. And you owe me a new fence. The Bayview Motel smelled like disinfectant and regret. Elena kicked open room 7, practically carrying Dominic inside. He was deteriorating fast. She dumped him on the bed. He let out a roar of pain that shook the walls. Quiet, Elena hissed. You want to call the front desk or the death squad? She ran to the bathroom, grabbing towels. When she came back, Dominic was trying to rip his soaked shirt off. Let me, she said, her voice softening. She peeled the fabric back. It was ugly. A puckered black hole in his shoulder, oozing dark liquid. Silver, Dominic gritted out. Hollow point, still inside. I don't have medical equipment, Elena said, panic fluttering. I have a first aid kit with band-aids and tweezers. Do it, he commanded, looking at her with dimming eyes. Dig it out, or I die. Elena swallowed hard. She grabbed the tweezers and a bottle of vodka from the minibar. She poured alcohol over everything, then over his wound. The sound that left his throat made her hair stand up. I'm sorry, she whispered, probing the wound. The metal clicked against the tweezers. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, he panted. Just get it. She found the slug and yanked it out, dropping it into a water glass. Dominic slumped back. Then something impossible happened. Steam began rising from the wound. The flesh knit together, cells regenerating visibly. Within seconds, there was nothing but a faint pink scar. Dominic took a deep breath, his strength returning. He sat up and looked at his shoulder, then at Elena. The air in the room suddenly grew heavy. Hot. Elena stepped back, hitting the dresser. The adrenaline was fading, leaving something else, an inexplicable pull toward him. Dominic stood. He towered over her, wet, shirtless, and now terrifyingly healthy. He stalked toward her until her back pressed against the mirror. You saved me, he murmured, bracing his hands on either side of her, trapping her. I did, Elena managed. Now back up. I don't take orders, he said, leaning down until his lips were an inch from her ear. I give them. Elena's eyes narrowed. Fear evaporated, replaced by the same stubbornness that had kept her independent for decades. She placed a hand flat on his chest and pushed. He didn't move, but he looked surprised. Look, she said, staring him dead in the eye. I just dug a bullet out of you with eyebrow tweezers in a motel that charges by the hour. You're not some commanding presence right now. You're a liability. And if you intimidate me one more time, I'm putting that bullet back in." Dominic stared at her. The silence stretched, tense and electric. Then he laughed, a rich, deep sound that warmed the cold room. "Dangerous," he said, looking at her with appreciation. "You challenge power. Dangerous habit, Elena. How do you know my name?" He tapped the side of his nose. "I know everything about you now. Your scent, your heartbeat, and where you belong." "I belong in bed," Elena said, ducking under his arm. "Alone. I'm getting ice." She opened the door, needing air. She made it to the vending machine before the pain hit. Not a cramp. Agony. Like her heart was being ripped from her chest. She gasped, doubling over. Inside the room, she heard a thud, as if Dominic had fallen. She couldn't leave. "You have got to be kidding me," Elena groaned, clutching her chest as she stared at the door. The invisible leash snapped back the moment Elena crossed the threshold. The crushing weight vanished, replaced by a rush of relief so potent it made her knees buckle. "I see you decided to stay." Dominic's voice rumbled from the shadows. He sat on the bed, looking infuriatingly composed. He held a tiny bag of peanuts, popping them into his mouth with casual elegance. "I didn't decide anything," Elena snapped. "I walked 10 feet and felt like I was having a heart attack. What did you do to me?" "I did nothing," Dominic said. "Our connection was made when you breathed life into me. Biology did the rest. Separation is unpleasant." "Unpleasant?" Elena laughed harshly. "It felt like someone was liquefying my organs." "For me as well," he admitted. "But I knew you'd return. You had no choice." "I always have a choice," she muttered. "Stop fighting it." Dominic stood, the room immediately feeling smaller. "You saved my life. You bonded to me. Now you must know who you've claimed." He straightened, his presence filling the space. "I am Dominic Caney, head of the Caney Corporation. My family controls territory from Seattle to San Diego, and my brother just tried to murder me to take everything I've built." He paused, waiting for awe. Elena pulled out a crumpled receipt and slapped it on his chest. "That's fantastic. That means you can afford the bill. This room is $80 a night, plus the peanuts." Dominic looked down at the paper, then back at her, bewildered. "I just told you I control billions, and you're concerned with currency? I'm concerned with rent. I saved you. You're healed. We're even. I'm not joining your corporate empire or becoming arm candy for a CEO." Dominic's amusement vanished. He closed the gap between them. "You think this is a transaction? You think you can walk away because it's inconvenient?" "I think I'm a free woman living in the 21st century, Elena shot back. "I don't belong to anyone." "You're wrong." Dominic didn't shout. The absolute certainty in his tone was scarier. "The moment your breath entered my lungs, the choice was made. You're the target of my enemies now. You're the weakness of a man with power." "Then let me go," she whispered. "Never," he vowed, his eyes burning. "We leave at dawn. You'll help me reclaim what's mine." "And if I say no?" Dominic leaned in, his lips brushing her ear. "Then I'll carry you. You saved me, Elena. You belong to me now." Dawn could go to hell. Elena waited exactly 45 minutes for deep sleep to claim Dominic. Then she grabbed her keys and boots, moving with practiced stealth. She slipped out, the cool night air hitting her face like freedom. Dominic Caney might control an empire, but he clearly underestimated a woman with maxed-out credit cards and a strong aversion to being owned. "Belong to him," she mocked under her breath, jamming the key into the ignition. "Buddy, the only thing I belong to is my mortgage." The engine roared. She peeled out, gravel spraying. Mile 1 was easy. She felt lighter. Mile 2 brought the headache. Dull throb behind her eyes. She turned up the radio, drowning out the nagging instinct screaming wrong way. Mile 3 was trouble. The throb became a spike. Her skin itched, crawling like ants marched beneath it. Her hands trembled. By mile 4, Elena was screaming. It felt like an invisible hook had embedded in her chest and was being yanked backward. Her vision blurred. Black spots danced. Every cell revolted. She slammed the brakes. The Bronco screeched to a halt. Elena threw the door open and fell onto the asphalt, dry heaving. She tried to crawl forward away from the motel. The pain spiked so hard she blacked out. When her vision cleared, she realized she wasn't just sick. She was dying. Her limbs felt numb, the connection to her own body severing. 2 choices. Die here, on Route 101, like roadkill, or go back. I hate him, she sobbed, tears streaming. I hate him so much. With the last of her strength, she dragged herself back to the driver's seat. The moment the Bronco pointed back toward the motel, the agony receded. The drive back was humiliating. Every mile closer, the stronger she felt. She pulled into the parking lot, killed the engine, and stormed toward room 7. She kicked the door. It swung open. Dominic sat against the headboard, arms crossed, awake, fresh, rested, unbothered. You made it 4 miles, he noted, glancing at the clock. Impressive. Most collapse after 2. You knew, Elena seethed. You let me leave knowing it would destroy me. I told you, Elena, Dominic said, standing. He walked toward her, and the closer he got, the more her body sang with relief, betraying her anger. He stopped inches away. You can run from enemies. You can run from your past. But you cannot run from me. He reached out, his thumb brushing the tear on her cheek. We are tethered. He pulled her close. Now get some sleep. We have an empire to reclaim in the morning. If you touch that dial one more time, I will drive this car into the ocean. Elena didn't take her eyes off the rain-slicked highway. They'd been on the road for 4 hours, and Dominic had spent 3 trying to understand FM radio. It's repetitive, Dominic grumbled. Why is this woman singing about her former lover? If he displeased her, she should confront him directly. It's called a breakup anthem. Humans write passive-aggressive songs and monetize trauma. Elena signaled aggressively. Now sit back. We need ground rules. I don't follow rules. I make them. Not in my car. Rule 1. You don't intimidate toll booth operators. You scared that poor guy in Coos Bay so badly he dropped my change. Dominic scoffed. He looked at you with disrespect. He looked at me because I was handing him a 20. Elena turned up the volume. Rule 2, we stop for real coffee. And Rule 3, you tell me the truth. Is this connection going to get worse? Dominic went silent. The air grew heavy. It will stabilize, he said quietly. As long as we're close. But the longer we resist fully acknowledging it, the more volatile our instincts become. Elena gripped the wheel tight. She reached to drown him out with music when the news cut through. Breaking news from Portland. Sources confirm Dominic Kane, CEO of Caney Corporation, has been declared dead following an apparent accident. His brother, Marcus Caney, has assumed control of all company holdings. Elena slammed on the brakes, the Bronco fishtailing before stopping on the gravel shoulder. Dominic stared at the radio, his face stone. Marcus Caney has declared restructuring of all divisions. Former loyalists have 24 hours to accept new leadership or face termination of employment and legal action. Silence stretched in the car. He thinks I'm dead, Dominic said softly. The temperature plummeted. Frost crept across the dashboard. Dominic, Elena whispered, seeing veins bulge in his neck. The window. You're going to break the window. He is destroying everything I built, Dominic snarled. Destroying them because of my failure. Then we stop him, Elena said, grabbing his freezing hand. The contact sizzled, grounding him. We don't mourn you. We resurrect you. But we can't do that if you blow up my car. We need a plan. Dominic looked at their joined hands, then at her fierce face. The frost melted. Drive, he commanded. But this time it sounded like a plea. The safe house was barely a house, a glorified cabin deep in the forest. It belonged to an old contact. Looking at the dust, no one had been here in years. It smells like abandonment, Dominic noted, ducking to enter. It's off the grid, Elena said, dropping her bag. She shivered. The air was colder inside than outside. Check the generator out back. 10 minutes later, generator dead, fireplace blocked. Only source of heat was one moth-eaten blanket on a twin bed. Elena stared at the bed. It was barely big enough for her. Dominic would hang off 3 sides. I'll take the floor, Dominic said behind her. Don't be an idiot, Elena sighed. It's 30 degrees in here. With this connection, our systems are stressed. If you sleep on that floor, your healing stalls. I'm not dragging you out if you get hypothermia. I don't get in the bed. Elena kicked off her boots and crawled in, pressing against the wall, leaving him the outer edge. Dominic hesitated. Slowly, he removed his boots and lay down. The mattress dipped significantly, rolling Elena backward until her spine collided with his chest. She stiffened. Relax, Dominic murmured, his voice rumbling against her back. I'm not going to attack you in a freezing cabin. I have standards. Good, she squeaked, trying to ignore that he was a furnace. Within seconds, she stopped shivering. Instinctively, she pressed closer. His arm came over her waist, heavy and solid. He pulled her flush against him, tangling his legs with hers. It was intimate. Dangerously so. Why did you leave? Dominic whispered into the darkness after a long silence. The corporate world. You have the mind of a strategist. Why hide as a rescue worker? Elena stared at peeling wallpaper. Because strategists are just pawns for CEOs. I got tired of bleeding for battles I didn't start. I wanted to save lives, not sacrifice them. Dominic's arm tightened. He buried his face in her hair, inhaling. I've started many battles, he admitted. I thought power was the only thing that mattered, that if I was strong enough, I'd never be vulnerable. He paused. When I was drowning, when the water filled my lungs, I didn't fear death. I feared the silence. I feared dying without knowing what it felt like to be. To be what? Elena asked softly. Held, he finished. The word hung in the cold air, fragile and devastating. Elena's heart twisted. She reached down, covering his hand with hers, interlacing their fingers. Dominic let out a shuddering breath, tension leaving his frame. For the first time since the beach, he wasn't guarding or commanding or fighting. He was just a man holding the only thing keeping him tethered to Earth. 4 days later, they stood outside the Caney Corporation Tower in Portland. Glass and steel, 50 stories of corporate power. Ready? Dominic asked. Elena adjusted the blazer borrowed from his assistant. She looked professional, polished. A far cry from the woman who'd pulled him from the ocean. Let's crash this party, she said. They walked through the lobby. Security guards froze. Employees gasped. Cell phones appeared, recording. Dominic Caney, the dead CEO, was walking through his building, alive and furious. They took the private elevator to the executive floor. When the doors opened, they faced a conference room filled with board members. At the head of the table sat Marcus Caney. He looked just like Dominic. Same dark hair, same build. But where Dominic had intensity, Marcus had smugness. Brother, Dominic's voice boomed, you're sitting in my chair. Marcus went pale. Then he recovered, a cruel smile spreading. I see you brought a date to your second funeral. He snapped his fingers. Security guards appeared, weapons drawn. You didn't think I'd leave the door unlocked without insurance? Marcus laughed. The guards advanced. Elena didn't wait. She grabbed the heavy glass water pitcher from the side table and hurled it at the window behind Marcus. It shattered spectacularly, alarms immediately blaring through the building. "Fire alarm," Elena announced calmly. "Building evacuation. Protocols. You have 90 seconds before fire crews arrive with cameras. Choose wisely, Marcus." Marcus's face twisted. "You have no proof I tried to kill you." "I have this," Dominic said, pulling a USB drive from his pocket. "Your emails, your bank transfers, everything you did to sabotage me. I uploaded it to the board 30 seconds before we walked in. They've already seen it." He glanced at the board members who were staring at Marcus with horror. "Security isn't here to protect you, Marcus. They're here to escort you out." The head of security stepped forward. "Mr. Marcus Kane, you need to come with us." Marcus lunged for Dominic. Elena stepped between them, driving her elbow into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping. "That's for the car bomb," she said sweetly. 2 weeks later, the Pacific Ocean looked exactly the same. Elena sat on the lighthouse platform, staring at the horizon. The sun was shining. The water sparkled. "You're sighing again," her former co-worker, Dave, called from below. "What's wrong with you?" "Contemplating life choices, Dave." She picked up her binoculars, scanning the beach. Then she froze. A figure was walking down the sand, wearing khaki shorts and a blue t-shirt that struggled to contain his frame. Dominic stopped at the base of the lighthouse. He looked up. "Permission to come aboard?" he called, his deep voice carrying over the waves. Elena gripped the railing. "You look ridiculous." "I was told this is appropriate beach attire," he said, climbing the ladder. He pulled himself onto the platform, filling the space. "You left," he said simply. "I didn't fit in the picture," Elena said, refusing to look at him. "You had a boardroom full of people. I was holding a fire extinguisher I'd used as a weapon." "I didn't see them," Dominic said, stepping closer. "I looked for you, Elena. And when I looked down, you were gone. I'm a rescue worker. I don't do boardrooms. I don't do corporate politics. I save lives, and then I go home to my small house and drink wine." "I hate the boardroom," Dominic admitted. Elena looked at him. "What?" "It's cold. Impersonal. Everyone's afraid to disagree with me." He reached into his pocket, pulling out something small. Her lighthouse keychain. "I spent 2 weeks restructuring the company, making it right. The business is stable." "Good for you," Elena whispered. "It's meaningless," Dominic said. He took her hands. "I sat in that chair, Elena, and all I could think about was a freezing cabin and a woman who refused to let me die, who refused to let me give up." "Dominic." "I'm not here to command you," he said softly, lowering his head until their foreheads touched. "I'm done giving orders. I'm asking. My life is mine again, but it's empty. Come with me. Not as an accessory, not as arm candy. Come as my partner. Challenge me. Keep me honest. Pepper, spray, my enemies." Elena laughed, a choked sound. "You're asking me to leave my job." Dominic looked at the chaotic beach, then back at her. "Elena, you saved a man's life. I think you're overqualified for this tower." She looked at him, this fierce man who wore khaki shorts because he thought it would make her smile. "I do hate this tower," she admitted. "Then leave it," Dominic murmured, his lips brushing hers. Elena reached up, grabbed the whistle around her neck, and ripped it off. She tossed it over the railing. "Okay," she whispered, "but I'm driving." Dominic laughed, sweeping her into his arms. He didn't climb down the ladder. He jumped, landing in the sand. "Put me down!" Elena shrieked, laughing. "Never," Dominic growled, turning toward the parking lot, away from the ocean that had brought them together. He looked down at the woman in his arms, his dark eyes glowing with certainty. "Mine." Elena wrapped her arms around his neck, resting her head on his shoulder. "Yours," she answered,